Hey, it's Coach Matt at the Pryor Baseball Farm. We're kicking off our Seeds and Weeds podcast with episode 1 today, and we're going to get to know Coach Pryor a little bit. So, if you've ever thought my kid loves baseball but isn't getting better, this episode is for you. Coach Pryor, owner of the Pryor Baseball Farm here in Wesley Chapel, you've been building players for years, and you built a whole system around development. What's the biggest mistake parents make when they're trying to help their kids get to the higher level?
Well, that's a big question. It's probably a loaded question. There's a few parts to that. Some of the mistakes that we've seen over the years of doing this is really pushing for the kids to get to a higher level. Sometimes parents are wanting to play at a higher level, play a season up, play a level up, maybe even play two levels up. And sometimes, playing up isn't the best resolution for their child's development. Sometimes it's warranted for a kid to play up, but sometimes when it comes to the interpersonal skills or the maturity level, you have to also look at that. Playing at their level or maybe playing rec ball, but maybe playing a little AB or travel mixed in there where they can build confidence in the rec program that will lead into their travel program or their AB program, depending on the levels that they're at. Biggest thing too that I feel like in youth baseball is that a lot of people are chasing games. They're wanting to play lots of games, and games don't get you better. They can't help with situational IQ, but if you can't catch and throw, it doesn't matter if you know where to throw it if you can't throw it. So there's kind of a catch-22. You've got to get those individual skills under wraps at your level or even above level, so you continue to move up the ladder. Baseball is very much kind of like karate. It's kind of like you're going from a white belt to a black belt. So it's in stages. Throwing a baseball at 4 is the same as throwing a baseball at 24, but it's a different level, So the mechanics and the tempo and the ability to throw a ball successfully has different stages as you go up the ladder. So I feel like with parents sometimes where they don't get the right information, they don't have the right training, they're not focused on training, and they're just really being governed by what everyone else is doing, kind of just following the herd, so to speak, because it's games. If you look at the youth model, for the most part, a lot of leagues today, they'll have about 3 weeks of maybe practice, and then they're going to go into just playing lots of games. Now, I don't know why that culture has been, embedded at the youth and community-based program. Maybe it was to combat all the gameplay they were doing with travel ball. I'm not sure, but really there needs to be a more emphasis on player development, and less games, but enough games to have fun, be social, kind of like taking a pop quiz, for the most part. And then the other part is, and it's not of any fault of the parents, but I think sometimes parents lean on their community-based program for guidance, and for support and education and learning and instruction. And unfortunately, the leagues aren't intuitive enough to think, what are we going to do as an organization to deliver instruction and training, not only to the players, but to the coaches? Now you have a group of people that are volunteers, and parents are putting their hands in the volunteers, and you need the volunteers because you can't operate without them. So they're crucial to the entire organization as a community-based program. Without them, you can't have a league, but then the flip side is, what is their experience? What are they teaching? What are they, are they just a warm body? And, sometimes you just need warm bodies, to be able to make the league work. And then you always have, at the league level, you'll have volunteers that, are seasoned, or they've been doing it for 3, 4, 5 years. So they become pretty good youth coach. So all your underserved coaches or your newbies, they're not getting that education, and it's not really being shared across the community platform. So I think there's a lot of things in there, between gameplay, education, volunteers, the focus of the league, figuring out where to train, because there's a lot of different types of training, a lot of different ways to deliver the training, some good, some bad, some ugly. And parents really got to work through all that. So it's a little bit of a needle in a haystack. That's why I said it was a loaded question, because there's really not one defining answer. But if I was to wrap it up into one word, it would be parents need to train. They need to get their kids into training. Training here at the farm, we talk about it, is learning. If you're learning, that's training. and then you take that learning and you go home and you practice. And that's where you get the reps at. That's how you get better. You go home and you practice what you've learned, and that's a great formula, an excellent recipe for success. So for me, I think the mistake is just parents having good information and understanding kind of a roadmap or a blueprint to having the best opportunity for their child to have success at any level when playing the game, the sport of baseball.
Awesome. So today we're introducing who you are, your story, your style, why your approach feels different to families. You know, you were training kids out of your garage before any of this happened at the Pryor Baseball Farm. What problem did you see in youth baseball that you were trying to solve?
Yeah, again, I grew up in baseball and played all my entire life. My father coached professionally, coached at the collegiate level and a lot of other different levels. So I was around the game quite a bit, and I understand what I went through to be able to play at the collegiate level, um, and even coach internationally. So seeing that, but I was out of the country for 10 years, doing stuff over in Europe. And so when I came back to the States, and a friend of mine actually took me out to the ball field to look at youth, baseball, and his son played, and he was trying to get me to work with his kid a little bit. I was kind of horrified. I was watching youth baseball 10 years later. It's almost kind of like a time capsule. I left, went to Europe, came back 10 years later, and got to a youth baseball field, and I'm seeing that the kids can't catch, can't throw. I saw the level of instruction that really wasn't there. And I thought, my God, this doesn't look good. And at the time, I had an opportunity where I thought, hey, maybe I'll do some lessons. And I kind of just threw it out there just as a kind of a side hustle, really. And we worked out of a 3-car garage, and kind of became the master of training in a 10 by 10 space. And we had a 3-car garage. We had a really nice operation there. But the problem that I saw was that there was just really no education being done, no instruction. Um, and I felt like there was an opportunity for a model that would really create a blueprint for like a curriculum, almost like a baseball school, like any other type of educational school, is having a curriculum, having a system, and a blueprint that you can go from point A to point B to C to D E, kind of like we said, the karate experience, white belt to black belt. And I didn't really find that anywhere in youth baseball. There's a lot of content, videos, like I said, good, bad, and the ugly. So you have to weed through what's the right message, what's the right information to work on. Because it's not just working hard, it's working hard on the right information. Otherwise, you're just working on bad reps. So for me, when I started this, kind of paving the road a little bit 20 years ago, we've been in business 16. I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I still remember it vividly. At my garage, out in the driveway, we're having this conversation that there's always a new 7-year-old. Youth baseball is kind of like a moving parade, and there's always that new 7 and 8-year-old that's trying to learn something. So we see parents really go through the same fires, the same pitfalls. In whatever lane they choose, there's a lot of lanes that they can choose. Is the same problems, same pain points, same problems, same hurdles, same characters. You can just look at a person and go, oh, that person lives in this lane. And so with that said, what we've been on a mission for is to really hopefully change the face of youth baseball, not just only us as a business, but across America. We really want to change the face of youth baseball and hopefully create a system that is easy to facilitate, easy to understand, easy to put the application to the field, so that players can just be better and the coaches can be better, and we can make parents and coaches better educators and instructors fast. Because it's not that complicated. But I think what we've done here from the garage days, of what I learned doing in the garage, from probably getting too much information, uh, age appropriate, but maybe too much too soon. Now what we've done is we spread that out over a number of months and years, that information, so that that person still has the success as they build confidence over a longer period of time. And I think that's where ultimately the success comes in, is building slowly. We have a saying kind of here at the farm. It's like, put your child in the oven, not the microwave. Anything in the microwave usually doesn't taste very good. It's probably not very healthy for you. It's the same thing. There's no quick fix. You know, it's a slow developing sport. You know, it's not going to take years or months, but you've got to do something every day, and you're going to get better. You know, and that's what we want. You're going to see results fast, but you're going to build off that because it's a technical sport. And if everybody could do it, they'd all be doing it. You know, um, so yeah, so that's the biggest thing from the garage. Moving to a facility, we learned a lot in the early years how to kind of pace everything and not be so quick to have an 8-year-old be able to do everything. You know, just be able to do X,
Right.
and we'll get to Y in good time.
Right.
So,
And that being said, what was the turning point that you decided, hey, I'm going to go from a garage, now I'm going to go get my own piece of land and start the farm?
well, that was many years. I mean, we stayed in the garage for 2 years with a lot of success. I think at some point I was up to about 53 lessons per week. So yeah, so I'm banging out by myself 53 lessons or so per week. Did that for a few years. Then I got back into the high school arena. You know, started coaching some high school softball. Got into some high school baseball. Was in high school baseball for about 6 years. With a lot of success, you know, winning some championships, having 20 plus season winning seasons every year, districts and regionals and state final fours. It just kind of got back into, and I did that partly just to kind of get to know the landscape and the ecosystem a little bit better at the high school level, what those kids needed. And what I was seeing, you know, what skills were they coming into high school with? What was the gap? And then at the same time, early on, I was did a little bit of rec. I think I did rec in just about every community in our local area. I don't know. We probably have 6 to maybe 8 local leagues. I coached in every single one of those leagues, either as an assistant or as a head coach. Again, just gathering data and gathering information of what's going on, what's the best way to get this concept over to a kid. And then even did travel ball. I don't have a son; I have 2 daughters. And in the early years, I helped with a local travel ball team, right here in Wesley Chapel, with the organization right out of Wesley Chapel here, and had a great group of 8-year-olds for 11 months. I trained these kids. We were 46 and 12, had a lot of success. But even things I did then, I wouldn't be doing now. I learned so much in that process, and I learned a lot about travel ball and about parents and about tournaments and just kind of the things in the landscape. So between physically being in the rec, in the travel at the youth level, at the high school levels, and at the high school at a high level, winning championships, I feel like we really gathered enough information and trialed enough different things over a 10-year span. And then once we got to that and we thought, okay, I think we've got a pretty good handle on this, we decided to purchase the property, and we expanded in 2016 to our current farm, the 5-acre property. And, it's just been all uphill since then. So this was an opportunity for us to continue to test everything that we wanted to test, see the results. We've had a lot of testimonials, a lot of good feedback, and it's allowing us now to move into the next thing where we want to bring all of our systems and things that we've accumulated over the last 16 years. We want to bring that to other families so that they can have the benefit and the blueprint that we've utilized for all the success that we've had, that they can do it in their own home.
Awesome. And during that journey, was there ever a moment that you thought you might give it up and do something else, or what made you push through that?
Yeah, one of the things growing up, my dad said to me growing up was, it doesn't matter really what you're going to do, but be the best at it. Whatever you decide to do, be the best. And I always kind of just did that. Didn't matter what I was doing. Just if you're going to do it, be the best at it. That means you work hard, grind, uh, have the effort moving forward. And when we took on the responsibility of the farm and buying the property, obviously it's a process just purchasing. And then once you purchase, you're in kind of running a business, and you got to deal with the county and permits and all these other things. So, that was a huge learning curve. And, we got thrown a few curveballs during that period of time. And, those were some of the most difficult times here at the farm. We had a couple of years where we're in and out of courts, dealing with permitting issues and this, that, and the other. And, most people would just say, hey, I'm good, man. I don't need any more, man. I've taken enough bullets and punches to last a lifetime. But, one of the things that we tell the kids here, with baseball being a slow developing sport, is that if you want something bad enough, you got to work for it. And doesn't mean that it's going to be handed to you. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. You got to fight for it sometimes. Sometimes it's not fair. You can only control what you control, and you can't control the uncontrollables, like the things that were being thrown at us. Those, I couldn't control that. All I could do is control what we were doing. So it's how you respond to those issues, I guess. And we're preaching all this stuff to the kids. Hey, you got to hustle, you got to focus, you got to be disciplined. If you want it bad enough, you gotta work and persevere. So I dug in, man. We dug in and put up our dukes and did what we had to do. And we had about a 20-month fight on our hands during that period of time. And we got through it, and here we are operating and doing our thing. But it wasn't until after all of that I had so many parents come out of during the fight. Most people don't want to get on a side or the other. They want to stay kind of on the fence. But it was really breathtaking at the end of all of that, which, you come close to wanting to quit. That many, many parents that we had relationships with that just came out of the woodwork and said, man, coach, you just taught my kid a very valuable lesson. You didn't just talk about, grinding and focus and discipline. If you really want it bad enough, he goes, you were an inspiration to my kid. At the end of the day, you taught them a valuable lesson. We watched your story unfold for 20 months, all of the little turns and nooks and crannies. And so not only do we talk a good game, we back it up with action, and we walk our talk, So we're here mentoring kids, and so we hold ourselves to a higher standard, a higher level. And I think that, was a really valuable lesson. And, I think the last part I like to leave with on that, Matt, is it teaches you really what you're made of. When you're really put up against the fence and you're really up against the wall, you got to dig deep, and, you really find out who you are mentally, physically. And I feel like with baseball, it's a high failure rate with who gets to high school, who gets to college, who gets to the big leagues. You get 3 hits out of 10, you're hitting 300, you're a great hitter, but you failed 70% of the time. And mentally, how do you cope, or how do you deal with that level of failure to stay positive? And so I love baseball for that reason, that, it is a physical and technical game to learn, but it's also a very mental game, and you have to be strong mentally. And I think in life, you have to be strong. And life is hard. Life is going to have ups and downs. Life can be difficult and throw you punches. So you have to learn how to persevere, not just physically, but mentally, how to persevere through those ups and downs. So that was probably our lowest point, and we got through it. Pretty much wanted to quit every day, but we didn't. And it's kind of like they say, no matter what you do, just don't quit. Don't quit. Just keep going. So we're happy that we did, because it's gotten a lot easier. And we see all the stories that we'll unveil as we get through our different episodes with Seeds and Weeds. There's so many good stories and people that we're going to interview for them to share their story. Not coming from me, but coming from the source, like the Kyle Cooper story, and the Andrew Locke story, and the Lucas story, and just all these people that, same thing, they could have just quit, man. They were buried, they just, so many different things being thrown at them, and they all persevered and went on to play either in high school or even in college in some cases. So yeah.
Awesome. So back to baseball development. In one sentence, what would you say is broken in the current youth baseball development kind of system, and why you kind of made your own?
Well, I just think the biggest problem, in one word, and we've mentioned it before, and so I won't really elaborate, but it's training. We just don't have a system for training. Training the players, training the parents, training the coaches. There's just not a process there, and I just it bewilders me that in the world of technology, that we have not figured out that at the root level, it all comes back to education and instruction and training. And I mean, no matter what job you're in, you got to be trained. You don't become a doctor because you didn't train. You don't become a lawyer because you didn't train, or a car mechanic, or a nurse, or whatever your field is. Even if you work at a store somewhere, you got to be trained. Your department, there's training involved. Training takes time. Training takes money. Um, Most people don't know about me that when I was in Europe, I worked for a large, they call it a leisure company. And the company I worked for was the largest operator in nightclubs and bars. And they had a new division, which was a bar division, and they were expanding this brand. And I worked directly for the president of that division. And I basically wrote all the training doctrine from the time the door opened to the time the door closed. Everything inside that building, I was responsible for in a way of training, and also in a way of succession planning. That a bar person or a bartender or somebody working in the kitchen could become, a manager of a department or even a general manager of an entire unit. And I was with them for just short of probably 10 years, and we had a lot of success. We were the leader in the industry. We did a lot of good things and created a lot of magic in that atmosphere in the UK. And I always said, I always said that when you look at the buildings that we did, they were beautiful buildings, and build outs. They were gorgeous, um, but they're just a building. And at the end of the day, the only reason why those buildings came alive were the people that were inside operating it, which comes down to what? Training. That's where the magic happens. That's where the vibe and the energy comes from. And it's not usually just one thing. It's a combination of a lot of little things and a lot of details that create the magic. So I know this is probably a little bit of a long-winded answer, but um, you know, when you put it down to one word, I mean, we need training. We need training at the youth level. And again, some kids get better training than others because, like I said, there's some youth coaches that are seasoned. They've been in the game 4 or 5 years. They've learned some things and they're effective, and they're teaching probably some good stuff. And then you have guys that aren't seasoned, and they're underserved, and they're not being given the information. They probably want it, but unless they go spend the kind of hours of learning on YouTube and going to clinics and rubbing elbows with all the guys that are in your community that can help you, that takes time, and it's a process. And in today's world, everyone's very busy, so it's really hard to put all that extra time in on something like that. So something that's easily facilitated on the internet as a course, where a coach could get certified at T-ball level and various different levels, but give them a great game plan of instruction that will lead to the next level, and how to facilitate their training on the field, and how to maximize their reps and their time and their focus on the right information so that they can, help the children learn and set a great foundation, for them. So, but, training takes time and it takes money. And sometimes it's one of those intangibles. You're like, well, we're putting money into this training. How do we know we're getting a return on our investment? So I understand that part. Most leagues would rather get a new drag or golf cart or snow cone machine or hot dog machine. And they're thinking along those lines versus how can we help our community and help these kids have the best experience, and learn, Um, so I think there's a huge opportunity in that space. And that's kind of where we're directing our energies, is how can we help fill that void from our perspective in the future.
Awesome. So the families that do come here to the farm, and when they walk through the door for the first time, what is something that you'd like them to understand immediately?
Well, I think when they come to the farm, the first thing they're going to do, they're going to see the facilities. That's a farm. It's a farm setting. So I think they're going to get a little bit of energy right when they come through the door. They're going to have the energy. They're going to feel our vibe, our passion. They're going to learn very quickly that we're very knowledgeable in our space. They're going to see the coaches in a continuity, not only, that they're dressed professionally, but when we're talking about sock drills or thumb at 6 o'clock, rabbit ears on holding the seams, our bat drills and some of the drills that we do, and then some of the phrasing that we do, they're going to see continuity and consistency from the coaches. And then we're going to let the coaches have their own individuality to pepper in. But I think when they come to the farm, they're going to get a sense of these guys know what they're doing. They're going to work well and build rapport with the kids. You're going to see the kids smiling. Their kids are having fun. They're working hard. You can work hard and still have fun, if you can make it fun. So I think the first impression they're going to get on the farm is they're going to get a sense of these guys are organized, they're put together, and they have a strategy to help my kid, which is that blueprint that we talk about.
Awesome. So that was the origin. Now let's talk a little bit about what you actually teach, because that's what families feel.
Huh.
So you've said you benchmark the major league standards and then work backwards down the age groups. How do you translate that to an 8-year-old?
Yeah, so that's a great question, because people always ask us, what do you do at the farm, and how do you go about it? Well, we have a standard here. One of our standards is when kids come in, whether they're 6 or they're 16 or whatever, we want to give kids the skills so that every kid has the opportunity to play in high school. That's what we do here. We're going to help you play in high school, period. And we've had 100% success rate with that so far. Every kid that's trained here is 7th and 8th grade. 100% of those kids have made their high school team. So that's huge in 16 years. Now we've expanded that recently to what is our mission and what are we going to help kids with, and we're going to help them play in high school. Well, to do that, you have to have a plan. You have to have a detail-orientated curriculum, which we have here at the farm, that kids follow from, starting off as a dairy cow, which is our white belt, all the way through to our barn cat, which is our black cat. That's our black belt. So the kids are going to have incremental instruction and a curriculum to follow that we're boxing off everything they need to know by the time they get to high school. So what that does is, your kid 6, you're like, well, how does that benefit my kid? My kid is 8 and he's not, I don't even know if we're going to play high school. The point is that with our approach, we know that your kid's going to get the detail that they need where they're presently playing at. So that means with that detail, they're going to get better. And they're not only going to get better where they're standing, they're going to be preparing themselves for the next level of play, which is 9, 10, 11, or 12, because it's going to get progressively become a faster game. Kids will throw harder, they'll hit harder, you'll play on a bigger field. So we're preparing kids for that. So that's kind of give you a perspective of like, when you come here, we're going to help you in the detail. We're going to help you play in high school. We're going to help you be better where you're at. Where the MLB things, and the reason why I preference that first part is some kids come to us, like our slogan, dream big and train harder. Okay, well, dream big. Well, we have kids that come here at 8 years old, and they're like, what do you want to do? They're like, I want to play in the MLB. Man, that's a great dream. That's a big dream. Fantastic. Well, let's get started. We got work to do. So we're not the dream killer. We're just here as people to help facilitate and mentor and help them build that bridge to the major leagues. And funny enough, we have players that I've coached that are playing in the big leagues. And so when we say big league, I have to go back to my dad. Okay, so my dad played at a high level. He coached at a high level. He taught me at a high level, which means it was the MLB standards. So what I do is I take everything that I've learned over 35 years, and I've taken very complex information. And what I've done in the 10 years, as we mentioned before, where we went out and learned about youth and learned about travel and learned about high school, I've taken the information, and what I've done is I've back-chained it to a 6-year-old or a 5-year-old and say, okay, what drills do we need to do here that are going to set up good movement patterns for the future? And so we got very clever. I got very clever in breaking down the complex information to a bunch of different drill sets and different types of drills to help kids have fun, Because if we're just talking, that's not instruction. That's just talking. Doesn't mean you're not going to talk, but as a coach with young people, we need to do more. We need to participate. We want to have fun, and we want to pepper in development, but we want to have fun doing it. Quick story, when I first started, I was moving around to a lot of the fields before I kind of was doing the garage thing, but then I started moving around, do some lessons at the various different little league complexes. And then you always get those big league guys, they played in the major leagues and now they're doing lessons, or they're a coach somewhere and they're doing lessons before I got into all my coaching stuff. And, here locally. And, I got a nickname from a couple of the guys. They called me the gadget guy or the gimmick guy. And what they meant by that is I always had a drill for something. And, at first it was kind of tongue in cheek, they're trying to poke at me. But over the years, as they tried to bury me, with their comments, what they didn't understand is that I was a seed getting ready to grow. And here we are 16 years growing and flourishing. Because what they didn't understand is that I was working on building something different. I didn't want to be like everybody else. I didn't want to copy everybody else. I just wanted to figure out what were the best drills and techniques to help our system, help kids in our community, and hopefully help kids in other communities across America in the future. So when we say major league, we're saying if you want to go to the major leagues, hey, we're going to teach everything you need to know to get there. All right, but we're going to back chain that so that you can progressive, and then it comes into other things like getting in the weight room and even more discipline, your nutrition, your sleep. There's a whole level at a higher level. There's other things that are going to come into the game, but without getting into all the intricacies of what needs to happen to get to that level. The point is it's about learning the process. That they are focused at their level, they are disciplined at their level. That they're building their mind at their level, because that foundation is what's going to carry them, because they have that infrastructure already wired. They're going to go play in the MLB or play in college, so that's what we mean by MLB, and then back chain it to a 6-year-old. We're taking technical information and we're breaking it down into little pieces so they can manage it and continue to grow.
Awesome. You also use the phrase, you see it, do it, repeat it, play it.
Yeah.
Walk me through how that works.
Yeah. So in the early days, this was a big phrase that we used, and we still use it today. We just felt like, and we're building our educational model, what was just an easy way to communicate that. So we're like, you need to see it. All right. So you need to demonstrate it. You need to have, a way of, what is the drill or what is the instruction. So you need to see it. You need to do it, all right, which means you need to practice it and rehearse and get it where you're able to do the drill. And the biggest part that transformed over the years is not just doing the drill, it's mastering the drill. We have this word that we've been using for quite a while now, is mastery. It's not just doing the drill, it's mastering the drill, because there's usually a lot of little things going on with a particular drill. And so we want them to master those drills and those movement patterns. So you got to see it, you got to do it, you got to repeat it. Well, repeating it is at home. All right, you got to, what we said, you're going to training is learning, practice is at home, and you're going to get lots of reps at home. So you've got to be able to do it, or see it, do it, and then you're going to repeat it. And then you got to play it, and that's one of the biggest things is, somebody could hit in the cages and be a monster and hit home runs and just kill it. And then they get to a game and they go 0 for 4 and 3 strikeouts. So it's really, how do you cross over, and you got to play it live, gain speed. And then you want to see that the performance is starting to improve. It doesn't mean that you've mastered the performance. It means that you're improving the performance. And there's a lot of indicators that you could use as a parent and a coach to see that the child is getting better in that performance. It may not show up in a batting average or ERA or anything like that, but there's things that, and we'll talk about that probably later. But yeah, the see it, do it, repeat it, and play it is a great, easy formula to remember. And if you're doing those things along the way, you're setting yourself up for success.
Good. And how do you coach confidence without lying to kids? What's your approach when a player is over 3 or struggling at the plate or pitching?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things we could probably talk about that for that one in hours, but I'll give you the short skinny on it is, we get a lot of kids that aren't confident for a number of reasons, and they're usually not confident because their skills aren't there. So as their skills start to improve, the confidence will improve. They'll start to, the confidence will rise as their skills improve. So that's the biggest thing is that, improving your skills, you can improve your confidence. Now, a kid's skills could be improving and they're still striking out. So then that becomes a mental thing, not so much that, the skills are there, but they're having a slump or they're not having the level of success that they would like. Or maybe a kid, I watched one of our kids this weekend up at the local park and he hit 3 balls and he smoked them. I mean, they were hard hit ground balls. He hit a laser right back to the pitcher. He hit one bullet line drive to the second base. He caught it, and then he hit a hard chopping ground ball to shortstop. And the shortstop made a great play and threw him out. So he hit 3 great balls and he got out 3 times. So that could wear on you, or you can say, "Listen, I'm hitting the ball really hard. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. Eventually, it's going to start dropping in." So, but the biggest thing that I find with confidence is look for small wins. All right. So look for a small win. It might be like the kid did a really good job with his hands in his training session, or, maybe he did something with his fielding. Maybe you just had his footwork, his chop chop 1-2 was really good, but maybe he missed every ground ball, but his footwork was great. So compliment on that, work on that, focus on the wins. In kids, what you want to do is you want to find more things that they're doing right than they're doing wrong, because now you're building them up. We know we got to work on those things, but let's build them up. Let me give you a quick example. I hear this at the ballpark all the time. Kid misses the ball at third base. Hey, you got to catch that ball. And the parents go, "Johnny, you got to catch that ball. We got it. That was an out. It was an easy one." Well, for Johnny, it wasn't that easy, obviously. All right, because Johnny missed the ground ball. It was a routine ground ball. But listen, you're playing baseball. And I think the kids understand the premise of the game because it's pretty simple. You hit a ball, catch a ball. You throw a ball, and you run. That's it. So Johnny at third base already knows that he has to catch the ball. He doesn't need 5 coaches tell him, "You got to catch the ball. Get your butt down." Right? He already knows his butt needs to be down. He already knows what he has to do. He just didn't do it. So really what we want to do is, how do we get past that negativity of it? I missed the ground ball. How do we get past that? And there's techniques to do that so that Johnny can stay positive. And there's ways that coaches can approach it where it's not what I call coach obvious, right? We're playing baseball. We know we're supposed to catch the ball. You don't need to say, "Hey, Johnny, you got to catch the ball." Well, that's coach obvious. That's a coach just trying to feel elevated. You don't even need to say anything. I mean, just say, "Hey, get the next one, chin up. Let's go. I want to see how you mentally prepare for the next one." Because what if Johnny gets the next ground ball, he catches it and throws them out? Well, hey, Johnny's got it, man. Johnny has got it. Now if Johnny misses 10 balls in a row, that's a different problem. But look for small wins, compliment the kids, find more things they're doing right than wrong, build their confidence, know where you're going with it. It's a work in progress. It's like clay, and just keep massaging it, and you'll get there. But there's a lot of strategies and techniques. We've worked with a number of child sports psychologists and just child psychologists over the years. Some of the best. One of the guys that we worked with has a few books out, and he was actually with the Texas Rangers, and then he finished his sports psychology time with the Yankees. And he's actually a local guy here in Tampa, and I've rubbed elbows with him and read all his books, and he has some great, great advice. Kind of like the animal game that I was talking to you about earlier. We got that whole strategy from him and his books. So there's a lot of strategies out there, but take it slow and work to build them up, little pieces at a time.
Awesome. And you talk also about, you see things that other coaches can't see. We see things that they can't see. What are you seeing that other coaches miss?
Well, I mean, it's kind of like what we just said, coach obvious versus, somebody just pumping the kid up and saying, "Look, okay, we know physically he has to get better, but let's work on the mental game." So that right there, we would see that, and that would be a red flag to us. So you've got the technical side, like the mechanical and the body movements of wherever they're playing, whether it be offense or defense. Um, And so we see things in that technique wise, are they using the right feet for holding runners on? How are they holding a runner on? When they do the force outs, the relays, the double play, what's the footwork? What's the technique of all of that going on? And of course, you got hitting, pitching, and catchers. There's all those techniques going on. So you got a lot going on. Kind of technique wise. And what we found is sometimes, you get a seasoned youth coach, and let's say, I always like to use this example. Coach will say, well, he's keeps lunging, or he's stepping out. You always hear they're stepping in the bucket, right? You probably heard that one before, stepping in the bucket. When they're hitting, or they're lunging, and we're like, okay, good, great, okay, he's stepping out, or they're lunging. You just found the disconnect. We call them disconnects here at the farm. So what would you do to connect that kid? How do we get them connected into a better movement pattern? So that's where the drills come in. Okay. And so we would look at that and say, okay, we want that kid to backload, or we want to do some of these different types of drills so he can feel his body working. That's kind of like what we talk about here at the farm. All our drills, we don't like to use the word mechanics necessarily, because I think it's kind of robotic. Like, it's more movement patterns. So we do drills so they can feel their body operating and feel what should happen. So we always say, our drills are field drills. We're trying to connect the brain with the muscles that need to perform that action. And by doing that, the kid can hardwire his body to move in a certain way, which is what we're trying to do, versus being mechanical. Because sometimes when you're mechanical, you become too analytical, you become thinking, and really baseball is not a thinking man's game. Yes, strategically it is, but it's really see the ball, hit the ball. It's a ball hit at you. You're just kind of more animalistic instincts. You just move a certain way, and you're able to perform the action to get outs, or hit balls. So for us, we fix things you don't see. Listen, you got to understand, we're going from an MLB standard, and we're back chaining to a 6-year-old. So with that level of technicality in our toolbox, we're going to really not only diagnose the disconnects, we're going to be able to also prescribe the right connection drills or sequencing of drills, so that kid can come out of something that needs to be fixed, and that, hey, I'm performing now, I fixed that. So sometimes I think parents and coaches, they do identify the problem. Sometimes they just don't know how to fix it, and you can't fix it this way. Hey, Johnny, stop lunging. You're lunging. Just don't lunge. Because if it was that simple, we'd all be playing in the big leagues, right? I'd have my $1 million contract, and we'd all be doing it, right? That doesn't work, and then coaches get frustrated, parents get frustrated, like, God, I've told this kid 1,000 times, don't lunge. Okay, well, that's not going to work with an 8-year-old. You're going to have to get inside his brain and get some kind of feel to what's supposed to happen. They're like, oh, now I get it. Now I understand. Now I feel my body doing, oh, wow, look at the ball went really far. Wow, when I did that, oh, the ball hit the fence, So it's understanding that. So when we say, we fix things that you can't see, you got to understand, we don't say that to be arrogant. What we're saying is, as we mentioned earlier, very knowledgeable, 35 years of experience, and we've now put that experience into a training system that all of our coaches utilize here at the farm to help their kids get better and have a quicker path of getting better, when they fix things.
Awesome. We've implemented a lot of technology here at the farm. And that being said, we have a lot of old school training methods as well. So how do you kind of blend the two, and how do you keep the tech from kind of becoming a distraction?
Yeah. So, for the longest time here at the farm, in particular, we haven't really gotten into a lot of technology, data stuff. We use video quite regularly, whether it be video for drills, video for just, having a conversation. We video every new player when they first come through here. It's the first thing, they do a player assessment. We get them on video, because then we can identify the disconnects, so we understand where we have to go to connect. But more importantly, it paints a picture. Like they say, a picture paints 1,000 words. It paints a picture to the player of, hey, you see what you're doing here? We want to stop doing that part right there. We want to not do that one. Here's a picture of what it looks like, and we want to do that. So we want to go away from this. We want to go to this. And that's also for the parents, because, again, we're talking about complex information. It helps the parents understand where we're going with the training. So when they see that starting to happen, now they have an ROI on their investment for for training purposes of getting their kid better. Um, so we've used video a lot. We've used a few training aids out there that we like. Won't mention them all today, but there are some training aids that I think are applicable to our philosophy and things when we're teaching hitting or throwing. Some things are nice, but I think they're very expensive, and I'm like, don't really need that. I can do that with a sock, or I can just do that with my baseball bat. I don't need a training aid for that. I just use my bat. So there's those types of things, so we can show parents how to save money and still get the same results. And then, over the years, we use radar guns. We use the radar gun for just getting an idea of where kids are at, because it does show them on the platform of, the national average, where are you? And that's good for the parents to understand that, where am I? Okay, yeah, you're right where you're supposed to be. And you're below level, or, you're advanced. And then lastly, in recent years, we have brought in some technology. One of the products we brought in was Rapsodo. And, to give us that extra, data that we wanted for the older players. I think the data is more relevant to the older players that are trying to get into college, trying to perfect their pitch, maybe trying to increase the velocity on their bat, their exit velos. But I wouldn't focus on it. It's kind of like pitching. I believe that you need to become a pitcher, learn how to pitch, learn how to get ground balls and get outs, have good secondary stuff and be able to locate, and then start working on your velo and all the rest of it. What I liked about Rapsodo for the youth is not so much the data, but I like the fact that you can hit the ball and track. It'll show you where the ball went, and it also shows you how far it went. So you can assess, hey, that was a base hit, dude. That was a really good hit. And I think the kids can look at that and go, oh, look where I hit the ball. Because when you hit in a cage, you're in a box. That can be kind of boring. You hit the ball. You don't have the feedback where if you're doing live BP at the field and you hit the ball really well, like, oh, man, I smashed that one. And so I like some of the data stuff because I think it gives you good feedback. And you can talk about it. And like with the older boys, we're talking about spin of the ball, or when they hit the ball and it shows the spin of the ball, you can correlate that spin to what happened with their swing. It's like, well, you were late, or you got under the ball, or you rolled over the top. And now they can see that on the screen. And now it's that painting that picture, right? A picture paints 1,000 words. They start to get the concept. But I think there's a time and place for the data. And I think it really depends on their age a little bit, but also their skill level. Where are they to have that kind of articulation of information to them? Otherwise, it's floats right over their head, and it's like, hey, what's the point?
Right.
So.
Right. So that's a little bit about your philosophy. Now I want the viewers to kind of understand, the products here at the farm and, how those kind of align with your philosophy. So that being said, give me a quick roadmap for a family walking through, a brand new family coming through the doors. What's their first step?
Okay. Well, listen, a great first step is to get a player assessment. Regardless of what you do, whether you train here, you're getting into training, or you're exploring training opportunities and you want to kind of figure out where you're at, I would get a good player assessment. We do a player assessment here. It takes about an hour. It doesn't matter what your age is. We have an assessment for every age, that's appropriate for every age. Get assessed, learn what your disconnects are, to understand, the path to getting connected. So that's your first step. That's the first best step is get a player assessment if you're local. You can also get a player assessment just by sending in a video to us. We can do a remote assessment. We have that opportunity. You can send in a video to us. We'll analyze that, go over the disconnects, and then we can even put a plan, a strategic plan together for you, even if you're somewhere in the United States, or overseas or wherever, and you want a training plan. We can map out a drill sequencing, week 1, week 2, week 3. What are you going to do to start, building a new movement pattern, so you can have success with whatever skill you're working on. We do that with all the skills. Player assessment is a great first step. And then once you've been assessed, if you're here locally, we can then put you into the right training program. We have a number of training programs. That's probably where it gets a little confusing for our customer, because we do so much, between private lessons, our small group program, our duck development program. We call it, the kids are in the pond, so they're training in the pond to eventually get to our Lucky Duck program, which is a competitive program. We also have farm leagues, so we have a winter season and we have a summer season where you can go 12-week, 8-week, or 4 weeks. So there's that whole part of getting gameplay with and some instruction to help with situational IQ, more touches on the ball, playing multiple positions. So, gameplay through our farm league is a great opportunity to really expand your learning and be able to play games and have fun, but in an instructional environment, which I think is huge than the community-based program where it's trained for 3 weeks and then just play games. And there's really no instruction. It's just, hey, let's just go for it. So a lot of different programs here, seasonal programs, whether it be camps, clinics, coaching clinics, workshops, coaches classroom, online learning now. We have a lot of online learning. There's going to be more online learning this year. We're rolling out, we almost have, I think we're on pace right now to almost have a course every month now until Christmas. So we're going to have another 7 courses added to our online vault going into the new year. So, I mean, if you're online, you can get everything we do here at the farm online, or you can visit us. I have some people flying in this summer from out of state, and they're going to come train with us for a week, sometimes 2 weeks. We got some local Floridians. They're going to be coming in. I know I got some people from, I think, Vero Beach, Daytona. And where's the other one? I think Fort Myers. But they're going to be coming through here. They're vacationing in this area, doing some things and some sightseeing. And I guess they're doing kind of a staycation, and they want to get some baseball. They've seen us online. They love what we're talking about and doing. So they're going to drop in for a few days and get some training here, kind of on their tour of things to experience, which we're tickled about. So a lot of opportunities. You just got to kind of figure out where you're at, where you want to go. We can definitely help anybody get where they want to go. We can build a program as well. We've done that in the past where we've built things that work specifically for them. But the biggest thing is player assessment. You gotta know where you're at. If you're going to train somewhere and they don't put you on video, they don't really do a real good player assessment and kind of tell you where your disconnects are or where you're at. And I don't care if you're 6 or you're 16 or 26. You got to use video, and you got to have a player assessment. First off, you don't know where you're at, you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you need to work on. I just think you're setting yourself up for success. It's not a one size fits all. Hitting is hitting and throwing is throwing, but a drill that one kid can do or master, another kid may not be able to do that drill, but they still need to work on their feet or their hands. You need to come up with a different drill out of your toolbox for that particular player or child so that they can process. So it's not a one size fits all. It's not like just, hey, this is what we do and it fits everybody. You got to be able to maneuver. That's why we have such a large toolbox in everything we do here at the farm. So first step, player assessment. It would be my best suggestion.
Awesome. So now let's go over a couple of the programs. Our pitching program is called K Farm. When people hear velocity, that starts to kind of put risk into their brain, especially with the history of arm injuries. What does smart pitcher development mean to you?
Yeah, so for me, as I mentioned this earlier, at the youth level, become a pitcher. First off, we have a philosophy here at the farm. Every kid 12 and under should be able to pitch, because in my opinion, every kid should learn how to throw. So if you can throw, there's no reason why you can't pitch. And I think it's a great experience for everyone to be on that little island pitching, whether it be one batter or one inning, it doesn't matter. They need to know what it feels like to have all eyes on you. Pitching is 70% of the game. Okay. It's the first line of defense is your pitcher. Second line of defense is your infield. And your last line of defense is your outfield. All right. Outfield probably has the hardest mental game that they have to play, because they got to be prepared on every pitch to go catch one or two maybe fly balls or line drives in a game. And sometimes in youth, they might only get one ball, and it's the one that's going to win or lose the game, so they got to be ready. So mentally, it's a really tough position to play the outfield, because they got to really be mentally strong. And then, of course, your last line of defense is the fence. We really don't want balls going to the fence for obvious reasons. It's multiple bases. And in youth, sometimes it's an end of park home run. So, but, when it comes to velocity, What I would focus on is, one, learn how to throw the baseball first and foremost. If you can throw a baseball, everything changes um, in their play. They should be able to pitch as well, because if they can throw, they can pitch. And then from there, when they start to master their pitching a little bit, and they can hit their spots, they have a secondary pitch, their better mechanics are going to naturally progress their velocity. Okay, so if you're mechanically aligned, velo will marginally go up to a point. Then you're going to grow. So as you grow, that's going to add velo, because you're going to mature, you're going to hit puberty, da 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 da. When they get into high school, they're probably doing some kind of weight training program, because if they play football or any other sport, there's usually some kind of weight training program. So that's going to help them. Now, you can get more specific with all of that as you move up the ladder, but until you can throw the ball with good mechanics, become a really good, pitcher, where you're spotting the ball, I wouldn't really worry about velo, because naturally you're going to get velo. And then the other problem with this is, we get, and this has happened, and I've worked with kids. I've actually helped them through their rehab program. They came from other programs, and they were throwing weighted balls, or they were doing certain things, and then they would go home and do that stuff. But at home, they didn't have mastery. They didn't have clean body movements, and then putting a weighted ball, that's like putting gasoline on a fire. You got poor mechanics and you're putting a weighted ball in your hand, you're going to hurt yourself. So I hear all the stories of guys that have blown their arms out. You don't hear all those stories because those businesses don't want to tell you about that. Now, do weighted balls have a place in the process of velo? Absolutely. They have a process for velo. They have a process for rehab. They have even a process, we use them here with our weighted sock drills, with our figure eights, as a great mechanical tool, and an arm care and strength and conditioning program. So under the right supervision, some of those things to increase velo are good. But you got to make sure that, one, the player is mature enough, that they have mastery in certain things first, which means throwing. And then from there you can build velo. And velo is really kind of a big thing, in the last, 20 years. I think we're going through a cultural shift now, where it's getting back to become an effective pitcher, throw the different pitches, keep hitters off balance, change their eyes, and get outs. If you can get outs, it doesn't matter how hard you throw, get outs. So I think we're coming back to a get outs culture, as far as pitching goes. You only need to have so much velo, if you're playing in the outfield. Obviously, the more velo in the outfield helps. You watch some of these guys like Aaron Judge and Ichiro and all these guys throwing from right field and throwing guys out of third or home. They throw the ball hard. Harder than some pitchers. So there's an opportunity to increase velo, but I don't think it needs to be the holy grail. And I think it kind of became the holy grail for a while. And I think parents, especially in the youth market, get your kids to throw well. Hit targets, be able to throw at the knees, the hips, and the chest. Be able to put the ball on a dime when you're trying to get it out at second. Throw it low, throw it at the knees, give a good tag. Be able to hit your cutoff man, so they can do good footwork and have a clean, transition to the bag. But throwing for me is by far the first step before you even think about velo. And I'm gonna leave on two stories, really, because I think it's important when we're talking about velo for parents. This is really for parents to understand this. The first one, in the major league, they did a study on pitchers that threw kind of 92 to 96 ish, 98, and they said it really didn't have that much bearing on the hitting. If you look at guys that were between 92 and 96, 97, balls were getting hit, averages were up. Okay, so it really didn't have that much impact. The data that MLB came out with was that if you throw 98 plus, it now has a bearing on batting averages. Now, whether that means that if you're throwing 98 or 100, and then you throw an 82 curveball, okay, that's, an 82 curveball versus a 92 fastball, there's not much difference there. It's not much changing of the eyes, okay, unless you're redirecting. So, MLB says, 98 plus, it could have some bearing on the batting average. It may have some effect, but under that, sub that, Doesn't matter. So that tells me, listen, you got to pitch. You got to pitch. You got to understand what you're out there to do. Understand your hitter. That team's philosophy towards hitting. What have they done before? Um, where it gets easy for me when I watch MLB, they play the same teams over and over again, same pitchers, so they get to know them, their mannerisms. They throw 60% fastballs, or maybe they throw 65% off speed, and they're only throwing fastball 30% of the time. So you have some information there, so it kind of gives them a little bit of a cheat sheet, in my opinion, versus a youth kid. He's meeting up new people all the time, and they're usually all over the place. So it's hard, okay? And then for the youth parents, that kind of the MLB kind of thing. That for the youth people, I've had recently, we've been getting out to the fields a lot more and talking with board members and presidents of leagues and this, that, and the other. And the question that they come back to us with is, there's so much to cover. We talked about education and training at the youth level. They come back to me and say, hey, if there was just one thing we could really help the kids with skill wise, what would that be? What would you work on? How do you, it's such a big elephant, right? And they say, take one bite at a time, right? So what would the one bite be? So I said, listen, if it was me and I was president of the league, my focus would be on throwing. I would have a program, just one program that every kid got so that they could get better at throwing. And I would have one program, training program, that every coach would teach so that their kids could learn how to throw at every level. And I will just make my league. If I could just make my league better at one thing, I would make my league better at throwing. And why is that? Because if the kids can throw better, whether they can catch or not, they can go to the ball and they can get it somewhere. All right, so that makes the whole game better. The other thing is, if you have more kids that can throw a baseball, guess what? You just got more kids that can pitch. So that helps the level of play become better, more competition, more pitchers. The kids who can throw, who pitch every game, it takes some pressure off them. They can rest those guys. Okay. They're not going to get these high pitch counts or these high innings per season. You can pepper it around, give everybody more of an opportunity and an experience on the mound. And probably if you're teaching throwing, guess what? Your guys who are a little bit better are going to become above average or even great. And maybe they play in your AB program, or maybe if you have a travel ball program in your league, they could play on that level. But they've gotten better, right? They don't have to worry about, they have good protocols on recovery time and, doing the kind of recovery negative throws and negative work to help them. So listen, throwing for me, if you can't throw the ball, you're not, I don't even know what you're working on, because you got to be able to throw a ball. That's for me, the first thing the kids have to do correctly, because you cannot go up in this game if you can't throw. You have to be able to throw. These kids will go from the small field to the big field and they can't throw. Guess what? They're washed out because they don't have the skills to play on a big field. And I think that's a disservice to those kids, because if we just taught them how to throw, maybe they could play till they're 16 or 18 within a community-based program or a travel ball program, men's league. There's a lot of opportunities out there to still have that passion for the game of play. So velo for me, I'm personally not that interested. Can we coach on it? Do we know how to increase velo here at the farm? Absolutely. Do we have programming to do that with certain players? Absolutely. But everything with us is you got to do the first thing first, and then we'll get to the next thing. We wouldn't teach velo to a kid that really hasn't learned how to throw a ball correctly yet. So.
Awesome. So our crush hitting program is also, another one of our programs. So what makes it different from any other hitting program out there?
There's a lot of good hitting programs out there. Hitting is hitting. There's a couple different philosophies, which we won't go into today. Some are for, older, collegiate players where you're a power hitter or a contact hitter, or, depending on what your role is in the lineup. But hitting is hitting. You need to be athletic. You need to be short to the ball. You want to be quick. We obviously got to work from the ground up. We got to work from our feet all the way through our hips, as an extension through our hands into the barrel. But our biggest thing with the hitting is with our crush hitting is that we want kids, performing. We want kids hitting the ball. We want to be making contact. Whether we get on or not, that's like the story I said earlier. The kid hit the ball 3 times, smashed it. They got up. That's baseball. You hit the ball, they make the plays. That's the game. So we want our kids, good performances, that they have a good approach, they have a good mental capacity at the plate, they have a good plate plan, they understand what they're doing up there. They feel confident. Feeling confident in the box is probably 90% of it. It's just you're confident in the box that you are going to hit the ball. And our players here at the farm have a lot of success with making contact. And that's what we want. We want the kids at the youth level making contact. Once we go past youth, we getting into high school, we start talking more about results. So we're talking about, quality at bats, quality innings as a pitcher, production. What we do look at averages and on-base percentages and some of those other data's capturing that we can get. But ultimately, our hitting program is, again, like all of our programs, starts at the beginning. It's detail orientated, and the goal is to build skills that are going to give success down the road. So we're going to be very precious about turning shoelaces and getting them using their hips first. Every youth player that comes through the door, they're all they got the bat in their hand. We always say this: they got the bat in their hand. Their brain has a stimulus because it feels the bat in the hand. Their brain is connected to their hand. So what do they want to do? They want a caveman. I want to go here first, and nothing happens with the lower body. And it's the same thing with throwing. They got the ball in their hand, so they want to chuck it, all right, and nothing happens with the lower body. And I don't care what instructors out there, they're going to say the same thing. Like, everybody's top heavy with everything they do. They don't get into the lower half because they don't understand the way the body's supposed to move in baseball. So they have the stimulus of the bat. What we have to do is start understanding the concept of hitting. And, that's the biggest thing with crush hitting is just, we want kids to crush the ball. It's like, it's in the word. We don't want to just hit the ball. We want to crush the ball. We want to scare people. We want to hit balls, out of the park. And we have a lot of kids in high school that hit a lot of home runs. They go on and play in college. I got a few college guys right now. They're like 600-700 home runs already. I had one kid, I think, he's got 7 home runs and 3 grand slams, and it's a freshman, so we just want to crush the ball, man, and understand how to crush the ball. And we just want to see the ball and hit the ball. We try to simplify it as much as possible without being too technical, just so that kids can have success. And that's our crush program, man. We're just going to crush balls.
You've talked a lot about process and the process of development. What does the hat structure bring into that? And you're kind of the farm development system. Why did you build that, and why did you see that as valuable to your program?
Yeah, so with the farm system, we had built out Farm League, funny enough, and we had 12 teams that we built out for Farm League, and we had all these different farm animals, and we had different color hats and all this kind of stuff. And we kind of already had put in like a color scheme, kind of like karate, white belt to black belt. So over the years, we're in our 4th year of Farm League, we learned a lot, and we've kind of massaged Farm League so that it works more effectively and efficiently when we get out to the field. That we get the instruction in, we can get the gameplay. We don't have to have kids on a team. So because of the process kind of changing with Farm League, there really wasn't a place for the farm animals. And so we're like, what can we do with those farm animals? And of course, we had all these hats sitting on the shelf. So we said, you know what? Bingo. The hats and the farm animals are going to become our curriculum. So basically what we did is we took our curriculum and we fit the curriculum into the different hats. So it's worked out really well for us. So now, you come in as a downtown dairy cow, as a white belt, you'll get a white P on your hat. So I got the yellow P. So this is a duck. This is somewhere like, I don't know, 4 or 5 down the road. But you'll start with a cow. So you'd have a little magical cow. I don't know where my cow's at. It's over here. So you see my duck here. This would be a cow. And I'd have a white P. So that'd be my white belt. And they'd have a curriculum that follow that. And then after so many months, they'll get evaluated. They'll test out. And when they test out, they're successful. They get presented the new hat. And the new hat will be a new farm animal with a new color. So it's great for the kids because now they have something to chase. There's a reward at the end of all their hard work. Baseball, like I said, it's going to beat you up. There's a lot of failure. So we want to reward the kids and build their confidence little by little that, hey, you've mastered that bit of training. You're moving on to the next level. You're still going to be doing throwing, but we're going to pepper in. You got to still be able to do this and pepper in some new stuff and get to the next level. So we have all the different levels. There's 12 levels. It starts from about age 5 or 6 all the way up to black belt, and black belt ends at 8th grade. So we feel that by the time you reach 8th grade and you're going into 9th grade, you should be a black belt, which means if you are a black belt, you're going to roll right into high school. You're going to make your high school team, and you're probably going to start. That's because that's the level of training. So we like seeing the kids get awarded the new animal. The kids like it because I like it. Oh, I really like the donkey. Like I want to get the donkey hat. And like, all right, well you got 3 to get to there. Let's work, and you'll get to the donkey eventually. And they like to collect all the hats, and it's a little bit of fun. It ties in with the farm. And we have a farm system and all the different farm animals, and it's been good. It's tied in perfectly with us. So. We're excited about expanding that, and to date, it's working great.
Awesome. So that structure is great. But parents also care about who you are as a leader. So let's talk a little bit about your culture. The parents sometimes describe the farm as kind of a sanctuary from the craziness of youth sports.
Mm-hmm.
What do you refuse to tolerate here that makes it different than some of the other places in youth sports?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think so. I mean, a lot of people will listen. A lot of people will say a lot of good things, like it's all about the kids, and we're going to focus on this and focus on that. And then as soon as you get between the chalk lines, it all falls apart. And then you got parents this, parent that. You got daddy ball, you got politics, and you got crazy parents. And listen, there's just a lot of dynamics. We are a no holds bar, no, it's black and white with us. It's just it's what we do. We've always been a little salty. We're going to tell the truth. And if the truth hurts, deal with it. I mean, that's kind of where we're at with the farm. I mean, we're like, deal with it. I mean, you came here to help your kid get better. We're going to give you great information, great process. We're going to have fun in the process doing that. The kids get a baseball card. They get a lollipop, or they get an ice pop. There's different little prizes. There's treasure box. We make it fun. We want them to earn stuff. We want them to succeed. Remember, we talk about building confidence. Little wins. But back to the question is, one, we're going to be truthful. So you're going to always know where you're at. I think the curriculum helps facilitate the entire process. So parents know where they're going. They have a roadmap. They have a blueprint. They say, okay, that's what we're learning right now. That's what we got to master. Hey, we mastered that. Now we'll move on. Now we're focused on this. So I think that's really important. Having that kind of level of communication with the parents and in our process, I think that's critical. But initially when they get here, when we do the player assessments and we get to the point of really talking to them about program intuition and things like that, we do have some conversations with the players and the parents. Is like, listen, to train here we have 4 rules. First rule is you got to hustle. All right, and we talk about these rules in the pretense that it takes no athletic ability to do these 4 things. So we're like, listen, this has nothing to do with how you play baseball. This is more about character building and who you are as a person first. Because if you have these things, you're going to have a lot of success. So hustle, effort. So we want them to bring the hustle and the effort. We want them to be focused. Okay, they got to have a high level of focus, or a level of focus. They have to have positive words to themselves and to others. We want them to positive affirmations to themselves and cheer the rest of the people on as well, part of a group, part of a team. And lastly, their attitude. Do they come in with a good attitude? They're having a bad attitude, all right? And again, that's part of the learning on you can only control what you control. You control your attitude. Okay, I get it. You're mad at mom because you didn't get the snack you wanted before you came to baseball. So you're mad, you're upset. Okay, well, you can't control that. That happened. Now you're in the present. Let's play in the present. We're at practice. We're at training. So let's put on a good attitude and let's get through 30 minutes and get something done here. So you have good homework to go home with. So those 4 things are really the 4 rules that we put onto the players here. And that helps them become coachable as well. And then I guess the other one that the only other one that I would share with, there's a lot of them, but I'll share this one as well, is we talk to the kids in the beginning about responsibility. And we tell them that, listen, it's in the word, and this is sometimes for the parents as well if they've not heard this riddle before. But if you write the word out, responsibility, it's your ability, it's in the word, it's your ability to choose your response. So it's your ability to choose your response. So we talk to the kids, do you have responsibilities at home? And they'll go, yeah, I got to walk the dog or pick up poop or feed the dog or make my room or, clean my room. And we're like, well, what happens when you don't do that? And they'll usually pipe up, well, I get in trouble. Like what? Well, I'll lose TV time, or I'll lose game time, video game time, or whatever. And so I'm like, so there's consequences, right? To you not doing your stuff, right? They're like, yeah. Okay, well, it's the same thing here. You have the ability to choose your response. You choose to hustle or not hustle. You choose to have a good attitude or not have a good attitude. So we flip that. So they got to understand the responsibility built, that it's all about them and their choices, because it's going to have a direct and proportionate impact on them individually, and that they're hurting themselves because they're not allowing themselves to grow. So, and we hold them accountable to that. Kids can't, from the path, kids can't, have parents carrying bags. We hear kids sometimes say, Mom, where's my water? And Johnny will be like, hey, Johnny, come here. In your house, where's the water live? Like there must be a place where there's lots of water. Is it next to the potato chips? Is it in the pantry? Is it in the fridge? They'll tell us right where the water's at. I'm like, good. Now, next time I want you to get a bottle. I want you to put it in your bag. You'll bring your water to practice. It's not your mom's responsibility. That's your water. You need to get your water. So we're teaching kids about being disciplined and focused on little things like bring your own water, put it in your bag. They have to carry their own bag in. If you can't carry it in, I've heard parents saying, oh, the bag's too big. I'd be like, buy a smaller bag. Or grab his bat and his glove. That's all he's going to need. Leave the bag in the car. I go, because you're not carrying it. We don't do that here at the farm. So it's little things like that make us different. Some people would say, like, that's not important. We feel it's massively important. We think it's really the first thing that has to happen before anything else happens. Because if we can't get that part right, we have no chance of teaching a kid to hit or throw or do any of these other things. So we have to position the kid who wants to be a player, and we have to position the parent to understand what we're trying to accomplish with getting their mind right to approach their training. Otherwise, you're only setting the kid up for failure. And that's really not what we're doing here. We're setting them up for success. So, we're a little old school. We're a little bit tough love. We have a lot of fun. We have, we win prizes. We build the kids up. We high five. I mean, we do silly things, but we do that with a purpose and with intent. So we train with intent. We practice with intent, and do things with purpose. So
You talked a little bit about coachable. What is your definition of a coachable kid? But not only that, what is your definition of a coachable parent? Because we know here at the farm, we have to coach both of them.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and you're going to find this, I don't care who you talk to, that's a trainer, parents and kids are going to always clash. I mean, you could have played in the MLB. Most of the time, those kids aren't going to listen to you. That's just a dynamic that we find. And if you don't have that, then you're blessed. But usually parents have to release kids to somebody else to get the message across. So what I like to do is, let us be the messenger. Give us feedback, what's going on in the games, what's going on at home, what's going on with school, and let us kind of help navigate that, be part of the village to help them have success. And likewise, if we see stuff, talk with the parents and be like, da-da-da, because the parents are watching your lessons. So they're learning from at 6 o'clock. They're learning strategies that we're using in our toolbox. They can help support those strategies at home. So little Johnny or Mary need to understand that mom and dad are now a coach. So when they're giving you feedback, there's only 2 words you should be saying to them. Thank you. So we practice them like, hey, say thank you to parents. Thank you. See, didn't that feel good? So we want the parents to be part of the process. Yeah, that's the biggest thing is getting the parents on script with us. And then with the kids being coachable, you're not going to win every day. You take the winnable moments. Sometimes kids can't give you 100%. There's things going on in their lives, and maybe they're running at 50%. Well, give me 100% of 50 then. Okay, give me that. But they have to be engaged. They have to, be listening a little bit. Um, and we got to be able to be that they're understanding, they're asking questions, and they're understanding, and they're making an effort in the right direction. Doesn't mean they're mastering it yet, but they're making an effort in the right direction. And then you got kids that are they're away with the fairies and they're just all over the place. As coaches, we need to understand what we can do to, to give that kid a good lesson rather than just constantly dealing with behavioral stuff. There'll be two parts. Either the kid not ready for training because they don't have the maturity level or the attention span to stay focused on something for 30 minutes. So that's one avenue, is just they got to go away, and it is what it is. Very rarely that happens, but it is an option. We leave that up to the parents. For us as coaches, and one of the strategies that we use here is get the kid into a high rep count. So for like hitting, rather than doing T work or doing some kind of instructional stuff, or taking swings that are poor swings, we do paddle drills here. So we get into a drill where the kid's going to have lots of success. He's going to hit 99.9% of all the balls. And you isolate the drill so that he has success and he's having fun. And then what you do is you do multiple drills. So you might, rather do a few drills, you might do 2x that, maybe sometimes 3x that if you have to. So you just keep them moving and you just run them ragged, as far as drill work goes, and have fun. Go out to the wiffle ball and hit up. Say, hey, we're going to have home run derby today. If you get 5 home runs, and you get the treasure box. Oh, now it just turned into a big fun thing. All right. Sometimes you got to understand that sometimes you got to abort the session and get into something different. So you've got to really understand that. But ultimately, the kids have to be mature enough to focus for 30 minutes and be coachable. Being coachable means that you're learning. It means that you're acceptable to learning strategies that are going to help you. And parents the same way. If a parent comes to a lesson, they're telling us what to do, I'd be like, why are you here? I'm confused, because you're hiring us as experts to help you, but yet you keep getting involved, or you keep contradicting what we're doing when you're off to the sideline. So, we do have to get on page and on point with parents. We love it for parents to be actively involved. That's great. Some parents are happy just to stand back and give us feedback, and that's fine too. So we can work either way. But we don't discourage parents to be actively involved at all. But everyone has to be coachable.
Right.
And that includes the coaches. Coaches sometimes have to be coachable,
right,
as well.
Right. That being said, what is a non-negotiable as a coach? Like, what would you stop a session absolutely every time to fix?
Two things that I would absolutely stop a lesson for. First one is that it's not safe. The kid's just not safe because they could run into a cage. They could get hit with a baseball, get hit with a baseball bat. So if there's some element of safety involved with the session, we would just stop and say, listen, we're going to have to manana. Let's come back. Circle back. So safety would be the first one. And then the second one is a parent that is just too actively involved. We would just cut the session. Sometimes parents also need to learn, unfortunately, and the best way to do that is to be like, listen, we've asked you and you're not getting it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kill this. We'll go ahead and give you a full session at another date. We'll get Coach Pryor involved. We'll have a little conversation, see if we can move forward. But, our coaches are the expert. All of my coaches are the expert. My coaches have 100% of my back. They go through intense training through me. My expectations are really high. So I they have to meet and or exceed my expectations. So I put a lot on them. And so I know what they're delivering, and where we have opportunities, I'm always there addressing that so that we're always pushing forward. So for me, I'm not going to sit and have parents poke at our coaches or try to run over some of the coaches that we may have. Some of them are younger, they're mid-20s, and you got a 40-year-old grown man, having a go at a coach. We're fortunate enough, though, Matt, here at the farm. I think our reputation precedes itself. They understand that we have a structure and a curriculum. They also know that we're very knowledgeable, which is why most people won't really put themselves out there, because if they're spewing a lie, they're going to get called out. Okay. Or they're going to get exposed. And most people, if they're faking it till they make it, and they're going to position that in front of us, most people don't want to get exposed. They'd rather just stay away from me or go do their own thing, or in some cases they might even talk bad about me. But that's only because they just don't know what they're talking about. Usually 9 out of 10 times. So it is what it is. But safety and just contradictory information as well. And I guess the last one that just came to me is that we've had kids come to us. Like we have travel ball kids that play travel ball all over the place, and their coach might be telling them one thing, but we're telling them something. We're like, well, you need to make a decision. Are you going to invest in the travel ball? Doesn't mean you have to quit playing travel ball, but you got to listen to one person. So it's like you need to who do you want to listen to?
Right.
And we would rather tap out and say, listen, let's just kill your training. Go do your travel ball. I hope that's the road that's going to help you do what you want to accomplish. Same thing with rec ball. You'll get rec ball coaches telling our kids, oh, do this, do that. And the parents are like, well, who do we listen to? And the kid's just trying to be respectful. What we don't want to do is put a kid where he's in the middle, all right, and he's trying to be respectful and mitigate all of this information. Like, well, who do I listen to and what's the right message? So my thing is that if you're paying for a training program like ours, as a baseball school with the knowledge that we have, it's like, well, if you're investing that money in us, you should be listening to us. So if you're not listening to us, then you need to just go wherever you go, because we don't want to put kids in that middle ground. We would rather take the high ground and be like and lose the client, which is unfortunate for everybody, but we don't want the kid having that kind of pressure. So we would just walk away. So we've had conversations like that. Sometimes it works in our favor, sometimes it doesn't. And that's fine, because I believe that is doing the right thing by the kid, and that's really at the end of the day. And I tell parents this all the time. Listen, we are here for your kid. Our job is to help your kid get better and to grow as an individual and become a man that can contribute to this community or whichever community, or he's going to be a husband someday, that they can do what they need to do to take care of their business. So we're here to help in that process of the village. And that's the point, we're here to help. So, yeah.
And a little bit last thing about your personality is, do you see yourself as a tough coach or a player's coach, or kind of a blend of those?
I would say in the beginning years, I was a tough coach. I was really tough on kids, especially in high school, and I've even had, some of my high school players, and one of them actually is a consultant for us right now and does a lot of our back-end website stuff and some other things that we do. Played for me at one of my high schools, and he's even said, in the beginning years, Coach, when you were in high school, man, I just thought you were an asshole. You're so tough and just hard on us. He goes, but you know what? He goes, I went through some stuff in college, and for some reason, you kept popping up into my head and some of your little riddles. He goes, and you helped me get through it. He goes, and I understand why you were tough on me now. He goes, I get it. But see, he didn't get it at the time, but he got it later. And that's my whole point, is that we're helping you become a man, all right, to grow up and to understand some things and be able to deal with adversity and tough times. So I was a lot tougher, I think, generally speaking, in my early years. I think I wouldn't say I'm a player's coach, because I'm not young. I'm a little bit older. But I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm tough, tough love. I'm passionate. I love all the players. I'll go 100% for the kids that show up in front of me. I'm going to show up for you 100%. You're going to get all of me. And I like to have fun with the kids. I like to high five. I like to shoot goofy videos. I like to do the bubble gum and the seeds. And, I like to go see their games, and say hello to them and get to see them play. It's fun for me. I love having hot dogs. Some of these youth parks have pretty good hot dogs, and then some of them not so good. But I can tell you, if you want a good hot dog, I can tell you a couple parks to go to, because they do really good hot dogs. But, we just want to have fun, man. The whole point of this whole thing, I know we have a curriculum and we have kind of a serious approach to it, because we want the kids to excel and get good information. And I think that's all important. But, we say it to our parents, listen, the first thing that you need to do is have fun. Because if they're having fun, they're going to stay in the game longer. And if you stay in it longer, you're going to learn more, which gives you a greater opportunity to excel. And you just don't know where it's going to go. So it goes back to that whole dream big. I mean, the guys that were there, did they know that they were going to play in the major leagues, or was it a dream? But they kept throwing things at it, and eventually they got there. But like I said, we're not the dream killer. We're just here facilitating information. So it's important that the kids have fun, but we're sprinkling in the development for them, and that we're preparing them for the future and for what they're doing in their present moment. And I think we do a good job of that. Now, as far as the staff goes, I think we have all different characters. We have a young staff, so I think they're probably more the players type, but they're the players type, but they're sprinkling really good information. And there's no problem with that either. We don't want 12, 15 coaches that are all kind of the same, personality wise. We want them to inject their personality. I don't want 15 coaches that are like me, but I do want 15 coaches that give good information that I would give, but in however they want to deliver it. I think that's important. So I'm a little bit of a tough love with a sprinkle of a bit of a player's coach at the same time. And, it'll be fun to ask the players what they think about the farm and what they think about Coach Pryor. I guess they will know.
Now that we got to know you a little bit, let's talk about your vision for baseball and the baseball community. You've been serving Pasco area for years. What's your vision for what baseball training should be locally?
Well, I've shared this vision. We talked a little bit about it before. Leagues need to get into training. They just need to figure out how they're going to go about that. Without me going through a whole synopsis, I know what they need to do. I did it with the bar industry. I revolutionized our industry with things that I did for that division. Made them a lot of money, millions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, pounds. But we've got to get back to where we're educating our coaches. Our volunteers need to get educated. They need an opportunity to be educated. I think they want the education. We need something that's easy to facilitate and to master their ability to coach. And then we need to trickle that down to the youth players. And it's funny because I asked my dad this. My dad's 82 now. And again, all the coaching that he's done. I even asked Coach Carlos, who's here at the farm. He's 53 years in the MLB, both as a minor league player for 10 years, and then 43 years as working with the Giants, the Rays, and the Astros, in all different types of jobs, on the field, off the field, academies down in South America, Venezuela, Dominican. And I asked both my dad and Carlos, because they had that kind of level of experience. But back in the day when they were kids, the professional athletes would come back to their community and they would coach, and they would help kind of regulate and so the coaching was always elevated. But that doesn't happen now. Pro guys don't really come back. A couple might. They move on to other things and other investments and careers, because the world's a different place than it was back then. And then you have a whole host of people now that are coaching that never played Little League. They never played. All right. So, or they played, a season or two. So you really have a lot of people that just never played or don't really understand. And so we've got to get a system that works to help these people get trained. And, if you look at some of the other sports, and I'll just finish with this, is you look at some of the other sports, like soccer, for example, or even like gymnastics, you have to get a coaching certification. So there's levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. You can only coach up to that level with a certain certification. You can't even get hired. And it could be club sport, doesn't matter. Because you only have the ability to coach to this level. And people know that. So if you don't have the certifications, you don't coach at that level. So I believe that we really need some kind of coaching certification on all levels for coaches to master and be held accountable for, to work with these children. But just anybody who passes a background check can coach baseball. And I have to say this because I say it all the time. It just came to my head. I always put it like this. If I'm going to a soccer game, I'm not going up to this coach and going, hey, I think, we should have been doing this on defense and offense, and, or my dojo, telling the master, hey, I think we need to wax on and wax off like this, or your gymnastics instructor then like, well, I think, I think we should be doing the bars like this. No, you just leave people alone. But why isn't in baseball, You go to the park, grandma, grandpa, the dog, the cat, every coach has played somewhere. Okay. Towns you never heard of, but they played professionally somewhere. All right. And it's like everybody knows baseball. Maybe because it's America's pastime. I don't know. But everybody doesn't know. And that's the problem. So if we're going to get them to know, we really need to be looking at a national certification process across America to help our youth baseball become better. And listen, travel ball hurt youth baseball. All right. Because travel ball is not what it used to be. Anybody can have a team. There's so many different lanes of travel ball, where single A, double A, triple A majors, different age groups, socially it's fun. It's this, it's that. It's watered it all down. And it's really impacted the rec ball, and the rec ball's tried to fight it. And I think in most cases they fought it in the wrong way, but that's their business, and this is my business. But we've got to get to training somehow. We got to get more information out there so that people can learn and do better in our communities. Somebody has to take the first step, though, and right now I just don't see the first step being taken.
Right. And what's a misconception about player development that you'd like to retire publicly today?
I would just say, bottom line is training is learning. Be somewhere where you can learn, and that you're getting good nuggets that are going to build you, so you can have the performance and the results that you want as you're going down your path. And then you got to practice at home. You got to practice at home. You got to put in the reps. Listen, I don't care who you are, what you do in life. If you're focused and you're disciplined, you're going to have a lot of success. I think some they talk about, hey, if you only spend 10 minutes a day, you're going to be so much better than 90% of all the people competing against you, because most people aren't focused and they're not disciplined. So if you're just one of the few that you wake up every morning and you just do 10 minutes of baseball every day, you're light years ahead of everybody. Parents ask us, how long should we train? I'm like, 10 minutes every day. Build a habit. Get to 10 minutes every day. The kid will realize that I got a little bit more to do. The kid will expand it to 15 or 20 or even 30 minutes on their own. Let them go at their own pace, but just start building the habit. Kind of like you read all the books, it takes 14 days or 30 days to build a habit. Let the kid build the habit. It's more about building the habit than it is about the technical skills at that young age. So, for me, training is learning. Learn good information, the right information that's going to help you succeed, whatever that is in your mindset, and then practice at home and get the reps. I mean, that is the holy grail of all things: is train, and and then play enough games, just to test yourself that, hey, I'm able to cross over from training to gameplay. And I think that's a great formula. And do multiple sports as a youth player. Take time off in the off season. I always say, play your sport in season. Train in the off season and go play all the other sports that you want to do. Be a kid. Go do basketball. Try this. Try that. Maybe every fall you try a new sport every year for 7 years or whatever it is you want to do, and then just train on the side to keep your skills sharp. You're hitting, you're throwing, pitching, whatever you're working on, and then play baseball in the spring, and then walk away from it. But we live in these states like Florida and Texas and the Sun Belt, and they play year round. It's just, they get really fixed in, and then there's only so many kids that are going to go forward anyways. So you lose your entire youth to silliness, in my opinion. Be a kid, go have fun, have a lollipop, have ice cream.
Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And so, wrapping up here, if a parent can remember, one message from this interview, what would you want them to remember? One thing that would stick with them?
Hey, listen, to sum it up is, we have a saying here at the farm, be so good they can't ignore you. People come in here and complain about all kinds of different things, rightfully or wrongfully. Control what you control, and just be so good they can't ignore you. If you're better than the next guy, and if you're performing, coaches want to win. And I don't care at what level. It could be 6U or it could be in high school or college. They want to win. There's a time to compete, and winning becomes important. I feel like it's high school. Winning is important. Yeah, you want to teach kids to compete and have fun, and have a process. But at the end of the day, be so good they can't ignore you. Part of that is put them in the oven, not the microwave, and train. Training is learning. Practice is what you do at home to get more reps. Those few little riddles right there will shape your future. Be so good they can't ignore you. be in the oven, not the microwave, and train, learn, practice at home, get your reps, and you're on to a really good road to success. And that's what I'd leave you as a final message.
Awesome. So let's close by giving parents a simple next step. No pressure, just clarity. Coach, if a parent is watching this and they're thinking, that's exactly what we need. What is their next step? What do they do?
Yeah, so you can just go right onto the website at www.pryorbaseballfarm.com. And up in the top right-hand corner, there's a player assessment. Click that. You're going to just book in. Once you book in for the player assessment and pay your tuitions, they'll reach out to you to set a scheduled appointment here at the farm, and we'll go through that player assessment, and then we'll take all the appropriate next steps after the assessment. So the assessment is really your first step. If you're not in the local area, you can still book a player assessment. We can do it remotely, and then we would go through that video and point you in the right direction, and then point you to the right information online. And then alternatively, third, we have people that call in, and we just put a kind of an a la carte custom plan together for them. And we can do that as well. I mean, at the end of the day, most people are just looking for information and the structure of what we do here at the farm, and we can supply that and have done in many cases. So there really is no hurdle. It just depends on where are you geographically and what you want to do and when you want to get started. And it's pretty simple.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Coach Pryor. We appreciate you. If you're a baseball parent watching this, drop a comment with your kid's age, their biggest struggle, whether that be confidence, hitting, throwing, or mindset, and we'll do a part 2 question and answer. If you want to see what the farm looks like behind the scenes, check out the links, check out our website, and we'll see you all soon.
Appreciate it, Matt. Thanks for the interview.
Thank you.